She's a low IQ person. I can't imagine she wins. Maybe she'll get the Democrat nomination, but I think it's a gift to Republicans. She's a terrible representative. I watched her for the last 2 years. I can't even believe she's a politician, actually.
President Trump apparently has little faith in Jasmine Crockett's victory after she announced her bid for the Texas Senate seat, and some in her own political party agree with the president, apparently. The Washington Post with this headline, Dems in disarray in Texas. And here's part of that article, a quote. Democrats saw a potential opportunity in flipping Texas earlier this year, a state that has eluded them for more than 30 years, but now they are eating each other alive. Crockett's decision to run was quite the disruption. That Democrat primary initially included former Congressman Colin Allred and current state rep James Tallarico. Allred dropped out hours after her announcement. Actually, it happened before her announcement on Monday, so he got out before she even said she was getting in, and then jumped into a Dem primary for a gerrymandered House seat, furthering party divisions. Republicans, however, are celebrating this. Incumbent Republican Senator John Cornyn told one outlet, "Am I hiding my glee? I'll try to wipe the smile off my face. I would say it's a gift." Here's the senator.
Well, Kamala Harris got about 42% of the vote in 2024, and I bet Jasmine Crockett will not exceed that. She'll be lucky if she does. She's simply the Alexandria Cortez AOC of Texas, and that may work in New York, but it won't work in Texas.
Expectations from some on the left are so low that they are already dismissing her candidacy. One former Democrat congressman posted this, "Just want to be clear, for when the corporate centrists try to blame her loss on us, Jasmine Crockett isn't of the left. She's not an economic populist. She's what you get when you refuse to prioritize substance." Ooh, that's not a friend. Power panel now. Erin Maguire, former Trump 2020 Director of Press Communications, and Yemisi Egbewole, former Chief of Staff to the Biden White House Press Office. Great to have you both and in studio.
Yes.
So, Yemisi, I'll start with you. That was a big ouch, and it's not a one-off inside your party. What's wrong with Crockett?
Well, Crockett has done a great job of becoming a national communicator, and she's good at riling up a certain part of the base. But I think if you want to run in Texas, what a lot of Democrats are halting and a little bit concerned about is that it's not about just energizing a base. It's about expanding a coalition, especially in an area that is very red. This isn't her blue part of Dallas. This is really statewide. And a lot of Democrats had been working on Tallarico. They had been working on Allred. And so this is a bit of a shakeup.
So I'm glad you said that, because people may be curious about that red territory down there. There is a part of Dallas in the DFW metro that would like her, but they'd have to outnumber the entire district, the entire state, rather. What do you say?
They would have to, but for Jasmine Crockett on the first day of this campaign, she said she doesn't need to win Trump voters. That was 56% of voters in Texas in 2024. She's doing a great job not doing the math on this, because she's not trying to broaden a coalition. She's actually eliminating the lane completely for herself and for Democrats. That big blue fever dream they always have in Texas just went up in smoke.
I didn't know about the big blue fever dream.
Oh, Colin Allred, Beto O'Rourke, the lady with the sneakers. You think Democrats would have learned their lesson by now?
Right. We had to watch Beto O'Rourke get his teeth done. Do you remember that?
I remember the live
They're basically
stream.
influencers who want to be politicians.
Yes, and Democrats seem to confuse sometimes that noise online and that enthusiasm with electoral success and strength.
All right, so this might be a problem, too. There is no shortage of just time after time examples of where Jasmine Crockett has attacked President Trump and used words that are, well, not safe for work, but we're going to play them, but we'll be careful.
The mofo that resides in the White House has unilaterally, in my estimation, declared war.
I hate the fact that Donald Trump became president. The orange orangutan, you know, the Timu Hitler.
And she's even used his voice in her campaign video.
She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man, oh, man. Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
But some in her party are saying their message should be more than anti-Trump.
Even though Donald Trump's, approval has gone down, people still don't have confidence in the Democrats as an alternative. And that means we also need to be much more clear about what we're fighting for, not just what we're against.
Oh, I saw you nod. Come on, they've learned this lesson over and over again.
Apparently they haven't, and especially not in Texas. Democrats will do what they always do. They will pour millions and millions of donor dollars into this race to learn the lesson they should have learned before, whether it was Beto O'Rourke, the lady in the sneakers, or Colin Allred, who just lost. Republicans win by large margins in Texas, and so alienating them, Democrats haven't learned their lesson yet to try and put a candidate who could win.
So you talk about money. We saw that here on the East Coast, but these are blue states where they picked up, mayor and governor and those seats in November. But Afton Bain in Tennessee, is that some sort of a moment for Republicans, can you see, to just say, well, we better hit some of these issues? You've got the president out on the affordability tour right now. They can't win, but can they push?
I mean, Afton is an example of when you take somebody that doesn't really understand the culture of the area, like in Nashville. I believe that a moderate would have gotten that margin a little bit closer. And look, as somebody who grew up in the South, my policies are rooted as a Southern Democrat. I know that people in the South, they don't care about virality. They don't care about your one-liners. They really care about, do you identify with who I am in my community, in my church? And somebody like Jasmine Crockett has really got to turn the focus off of Trump and to Texas and to the people that live there in that state.
Well, she's a congresswoman, so why can't she turn the focus on what she's done already in that state and tell us what her policies and things are? But even some Democrats I've interviewed on this show since she announced have said they don't really know what they are.
She doesn't have a policy platform for this. Her policy right now is anti-Trump. That's not going to win in Texas. She needs a broad, diverse coalition in that state. And instead, she's alienating the population from the beginning. For her to win, she has to talk about affordability, the economy, the things that Texans care about most. And you know who is talking about those things right now? Donald Trump, as he's crisscrossing the country.
Yeah, now you got to go up against the marketing genius that he can be.
Yes.
Okay, voters sent Vice President Kamala Harris a clear message in the 2024 election, as she lost both the electoral and popular vote. Despite the loss, her legacy is still top of mind for her. Kamala Harris told the New York Times, quote, "I understand the focus on 28 and all that, but there will be a marble bust of me in Congress. I am a historic figure like any vice president of the United States ever was. Thousands of people are coming to hear my voice, thousands and thousands. Every place we've gone has been sold out," end of quote. Well, here's a little reminder of what we heard from the former VP for years.
See what can be, unburdened by what has been.
Be unburdened by what has been.
Unburdened by what has been. Unburdened by what has been.
While she is pretty high on her legacy, a recent poll shows 57% of voters report having an unfavorable opinion of the former vice president. Reverse order now. Erin.
Well, the vice presidential bust is actually something she will get. As the president of the United States Senate, each vice president gets their own bust, and it goes outside the Senate chamber. I'm a Senate dork, so I love that kind of stuff. But that doesn't signify her excellence in history. She will be with the likes of Spiro Agnew. There are plenty of failed vice presidents in this United States, except Al Gore, who still does not have his bust done as of this point.
No, but he had a doc that was pretty popular.
That's right.
The aisle.
It's a pretty big doc. I mean, look, she's coming off of a sold-out book tour. She is right. When she goes and she does rallies, it does pack out. But that gets back to our question of where does it go from here? If you can get people to come to your rallies, can you get people to come to the voting booth if you have any ambition of moving further come 2028?
Oh, she's never really had an election, though, if you look at Kamala Harris. She dropped out in the primary before Iowa in 2020. She was essentially handed the Democrat nomination with 107 days to go and try to run an election. So for her to try to fill these rooms with people is actually an attempt to convince voters who have already said no to her multiple times without actually ever having to vote for her.
Well, and you just reminded everybody she's run 3 times.
Yes.
If she does it again.
Well, and we'll see what Gavin Newsom, he'll have some sensitivity to that, how he
he's
plays
having
with
some
her.
issues these days, but that's another show. Okay. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.